Go. All right. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of XS Exceed. This is Gearface. I'm joined after a pretty long hiatus by my ringer for the evening. Andarel is back to talk about Propeller Night with me. Andarel, thank you so much for
Hey,
being here.
yeah, no problem. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, of course. Always a pleasure to talk to you. Um, really excited to learn about Propeller Night. Definitely one of my favorites from the Shovel Knight season. Couple disclaimers, as always, before we get started. Number one, we are playing Exceed to win on this show. And that doesn't always line up with playing Exceed for fun. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. If the lines of play that we're describing today don't sound fun to you, don't play that way. Um, Obviously, that's like a self care thing, but also you will get better if you're having fun. You'll play longer, you'll think about the game more than you will if you just try to brute force your way through the quote unquote optimal way. So play the way that you find fun. You'll get better in the long run. Number two, we don't know everything. Uh, Exceed's not a solved game, not even close. Um, Andarel is an expert, obviously, but take even his analysis with a grain of salt. Um, him being on the show does not mean that his evaluation of Propeller Knight is the only evaluation you can have. Please feel free to disagree. Play the way that you think is strong. Tell us what you think uh, you would do different than what we're advocating for here on this guide. Yeah, all that said, Anderel, please, I'm dying to know a little bit about Propeller Knight.
Sure. So, Propeller Knight, as you know, we love saying on the many seed communities, Propeller Knight is a shoto,
Yep.
our favorite catchphrase.
Yeah, our
Which,
favorite term.
yeah, I'm sure you've heard it a lot from all of the SF and etc.
Yep.
games. But basically, Propeller Knight is one of those funky characters that's got a lot of like good shapes that are all a little bit different. And so he's kind of a jack of all trades type character.
Okay.
The big thing to know about Propeller Knight is his ability is kind of fake, as in he just has like an ability that buffs his specials and ultras. So while it's important, it like might actually make more sense to talk about his ability more in the context of like his cards.
Sure. Okay. So when
Um,
you say his ability is kind of fake, like I, this.
it's really good. Like it shows up all the time, but really it basically means that like if you use his cards, they give you +2 power for doing things the quote unquote correct way.
Right. So like for example, this card swoop has a printed power of 1. It in
Yeah.
some circumstances what this ability is saying is that it could just have a power of 3.
I mean, not really in some because it's got range
Exactly.
1, so it's always
Yeah.
going to have a 3.
So to your point about being able to evaluate this just by looking at the cards, or maybe it's better to do it by looking at the cards. This might just like it would be easier to think about this in terms of just having 3 power.
Yeah.
Okay.
So let's actually look at the cards first and then get back to the ability because I think it's going to make more sense that way.
Yeah, no problem.
So things that you need to know about Propeller Knight. First, Propeller Knight is very, very range specific. Not really in a bad way. You know, a lot of his ranges are kind of generous, but because his ability gives you a reward for hitting at the correct range, he cares a lot about certain ranges. And what that
Right.
means, the ranges that are like really notable for him, 4 is a big one. You can see that he's got a range 4 attack here. He's got a thing that hits at range 4 here. He's got a 1/2 that can pull 2. He's got a 4. He's got a 4.
Right.
So more so than most characters not named like Ragna or something, he really, really likes range 4, and specifically he can enforce that with a buff curve option, a extra copy of sweep, and then 2 ultras that are like really can be really dominant at that range. So,
Okay. So I mean, notably, range 4 is also where you start the game.
oh yeah, Propeller Knight really has a fun going first situation because he can, like most characters, have the normal dive, sweep, maybe fireball mix up. Like that's a pretty common set of things for people to have.
Sure.
Propeller Knight's got headwind propeller pull, right? He's got a range 4 sweep and a fast 3 power range 5 attack or speed 5 3 power attack.
Right.
And he's also got this good old cannonball, which
So
uh
doesn't give you the tipper bonus for hitting at range 6, but it is ignore armor, so it means that it would it beats block at least, which otherwise he wouldn't really have an answer to out that far.
so two really fun things actually. One, it not only beats block, but it beats block super hard, right? Because it's got 4 power.
Right.
So you can't just like throw block carelessly. And second, um the if you're at starting at range 4, right? What's the like I don't want to participate in this option that people
Oh,
usually
it's
do.
cross. Sure. Now you're at range 6 and you get completely destroyed.
Yep.
Okay. So it's honestly I had a lesson with friend of the show Poulter a little while ago about Testament, who has a similar like projectile mid-rangey, long-rangey, like really really dangerous mix-up game that there really isn't an answer to. You've got something that deals with dive, you've got something that deals with like a fast dive that a Tatsu, for example. You've got
Yep.
something that deals with block, you got something that deals with cross. This is and obviously you have your own copy of dive. So this is like a really, really dominant suite of tools at starting positions.
Oh yeah, no, Propeller Knight loves starting position. And one thing that we'll kind of talk about is Propeller Knight, a lot of their kind of sub theme is very mobility tweaking, and so they love to like or he loves to move like one or two in order to just adjust range for things like this. And that's a huge part of Propeller's game.
Okay.
So
So
let's
you
yeah, go ahead.
started this part of the conversation saying that he's range sensitive, but his ranges are pretty generous. So obviously, like among like range 4 is a good range to be strong at because you can start the game there, and that's something that you can just do. You can be guaranteed that every game there's going to be at least one interaction at range 4. So
Yep.
like when we're looking at Propeller Knight's ranges, um we can kind of assume that they're like going to be they're like relevant ranges, that it's like a good like it's a good thing to be good at the ranges that he's good at. Is that fair to say?
Yeah. So what you're gonna see a lot of is that so he's got okay tools at 1. They're not really ideal. Um, for example, like he's got swoop, which is fine. He's got normals, but like 1's not ideal. 2 is pretty good. 3 is fine, but also like not ideal. And then 4. So like 2 and 4 are really good, and 6 is really good. Actually, it's
Okay.
even
So
numbers are
even
really
numbered
good.
ranges. Okay, so he's
Uh,
obsessive compulsive. Got it, got it, got
with
it.
yeah, those are kind of the main ones that you'll see. And then prop pull is weird. It's good at like 1 and 4, but it's okay at 2.
Right.
Shenanigans like that.
Sure, sure. Okay.
Anyhow, let's talk a little bit about cards so we can sort of explain how things work.
Yeah.
So, what you're going to see a lot with Propeller Knight, and let's talk about his sort of the pair of cards, which is Headwind and Propeller Pull,
Right.
are a lot of his cards kind of give you sort of bimodal options. Like they let you do two things exactly. Like they've just got exactly two things they do.
Okay.
And so this is really noticeable here with Propeller Pull and Headwind. So Propeller Pull is a kind of janky sweep. You'll notice that it actually works quite differently at ranges 1, 2, 3, and 4. The kit shape is actually just pretty different at each of those 4 ranges. So
Let's move some cards really quick and look at this board state really fast.
yep. So at 4, it's a range 4 sweep. Nothing wrong with that. You pull 2,
Right.
you hit for 6.
Sure.
At 3, it's you pull 2, you hit for 4, nothing really happens past that.
Right.
At 2, you can choose, right? You can either hit for 6 if you don't pull them, or if you do pull them, you're only going to hit for 4, but they discard a card.
Okay, so it's like you get the other half of sweep's value. So you can
Yeah.
you either get 6 damage, which sweep has, or discard a card at random, which sweep has.
Yep, at range 2. And then at 1, once again, you pull them 2, you hit for 6, and they discard a card.
So now it really is sweep.
Yeah. So
Okay.
it's a very strange card, but it's essentially kind of a 1 to 4 sweep with situational downside, if that makes sense.
Sure, yeah. And so you've got if you're at range 1 and they cross out, you still bring them back in and you get, people can argue about exactly how much discard a card at random is worth, but like a good chunk of sweep's value is hitting for 6 very consistently. It can do that, or it can
Yeah,
do the other really good chunk of sweep's value, and both of those things are pretty good.
and it's also got 6 guard, which is really important for characters, who tend to be kind of speedsters, where they often just need a defensive tool in case the opponent is cranking speed or otherwise boost warring them.
Sure. Yeah, it makes this also just like a pretty stable defensive option. Again, very much like sweep. In more recent
Yep.
seasons of Exceed, we've seen it much more common, like Giovanna's Travau, a 2-speed 5 guard option that makes it way, way less safe on defense.
Yeah, or
Um
Millions Iron Savior, which is kind of
there
a
you go.
similar, like
Yeah, yeah,
big,
yeah. Same
sort of a little inconsistent, but just
same
big.
idea. If you're initiating with it, you feel pretty good about its consistency because the guard is probably enough. But Propeller Pull actually like no, you could just press this on defense, and a lot of times you're going to be fairly safe.
Yep.
Okay.
And then Headwind is the opposite, right? This used to be called Propeller Push in playtest, and it was too confusing. But essentially, the way it works is sort of the opposite, right? At range 4, it's a above curve 3 damage with no real issues. It's it's a 4-3-5.
Right.
At 3, it's an on curve 1 damage, so not great, but damage is damage. At 2 now, unless they play focus, you push them 2 and hit for 5,
Right. And
which
and
is
establish a range you really like anyway, and probably dodge a relevant attack. So this is basically like it changes to your point about it being bimodal. It changes from being an above curve poke into being a mid speed, like a pretty good mid
yep,
speed.
into a
Okay.
pretty good mid speed. And then at 1, again, it's like a okay mid speed. It becomes a 3 damage push 2 at 5 speed, which is
Right.
not ideal, but it'll beat mid speeds. It's quite good at beating mid speeds.
Sure, yeah, it'll beat mid speeds. There are some slows that it won't beat the kind of classic the sweeps and focuses of the world, but there are plenty of character specific slows that actually are only like 1 to 2 range or something, and it'll
Yep.
it'll handle them okay.
Yeah, and it's really good at 2 and 4 because a 4-3-5 is a perfectly good shape on defense.
Sure.
And yeah, so you're gonna see that like a lot of why I said his UA is kind of fake is that his UA is what's causing a lot of these interactions, right? It's his UA is kind of just like baked into the cards
Right.
more than anything
Right.
else, and so it's hard to really talk about it without discussing any of this stuff.
Sure. So
So
I guess what we can say about the character ability in a vacuum is that all other things being equal, most of the time you would prefer to be hitting at your attack's maximum range.
yes, and
Okay.
so actually now's a good point to take a quick pause from attacks and go back to his character card.
Okay.
So Propeller Knight is like I said, his UA just kind of changes his attacks. And as you kind of mentioned with design language, a lot of the time there's a sort of question for characters like this, which are very reliable attacks. It's like, why do you want to be the one attacking? Right?
Sure.
Like I've got above curve options. I've got things that like kind of win speed ties, but like this is never gonna stun sweep. This might beat assault, but at range 2, like outspeeding
Right.
assault is not usually your concern.
Right. But
The
a lot of the time, to your point, a lot of the time, if you are asking yourself, well, why would I initiate with propeller pull? It does everything I want it to do in this position on defense. And you're like,
Yep.
well, I guess I won't then. I guess I'll save it.
And so the thing that changes that is his Exceed mode. So Propeller Knight's Exceed mode is very good. It's 2 gauge, and you basically want to do it as soon as you can.
Okay.
And here's how it works. It's quite simple. So when you exceed, you get to move 2 for free because you have a giant propeller like doing giant propeller things. Don't worry
Okay.
about it.
So that all on its
And
own, it refunds the gauge cost. 2 is a very cheap exceed. And
yes,
you're getting 2 force of movement out of just that.
yep. Movement for pop is like pretty free in general. They move all the time. You've seen, I think every card they have will move one or both players. Yes, every card will move one or both players. So moving is pretty cheap.
Okay.
The main thing is that action compression is a little funky for him. He
Okay.
doesn't have a ton of action compression until you exceed. So he's got the same ability, no numerical changes, but as an action, he gets Ulrich's old ability. So as an
Oh,
action, you can move 1, then strike, advance or retreat 1, then strike.
okay. So now to your point about why would you attack if these are perfectly stable defensive shapes? Well, if I'm at range 3, uh, and it's my turn, suddenly Headwind is in either of its two uh,
Exactly.
bimodal states, and I can choose, and I only have that option on my turn.
Exactly. And so that's what one of the things that makes Propeller Knight really interesting, which is you don't have a ton of action compression. You've got a little bit, but it's really just tied to like quick step
Quick step, right?
or winning a strike on defense where like you can use your movement to set up another strike. And a lot of characters like this tend to want to chain attacks together. You want to like cross, then like defensive cross, then strike, or dive, then strike, or assault, then strike is kind of the obvious one.
Sure, sure.
And a lot of the time, you're like one range off from where you want to be. So Propeller Knight Succeed is phenomenal because what it lets you do is your range band of like if this card is good at like you said 2 and 4, well that means that it's good between 1 and 5 now
As
because I
long as it's
can
my turn.
as long as it's my turn, yeah.
Okay. And
So
and it might not be so like if what I'm trying to beat is a if what I need is a mid speed, right? And I'm here. I probably can't action compress my way to where it's a mid speed, but I can action compress my way to where it is at least like one of its more relevant states.
yeah,
Okay.
and a lot of the time what that means is that your opponent it's very hard for your opponent to plan around exactly how you're striking. And so you don't have a lot of advantage. I think you might have like yeah, you have one advantage card. You don't have a lot of like big movement other than fly up, which is expensive.
Right.
But what you do have is a lot of like small kind of nuanced boosts. And what it means is that if the opponent like lets you boost and then they boost you back, or they boost and then they have to draw cards, you get a huge opportunity to like boost and then set up, or boost and then set up. And basically every time you do that, that's free. Your movement is just comes with the character. So Propeller Knight
Okay.
wants to exceed immediately because it makes their game plan of striking these like very kind of flexible but restrictive because you have to use certain cards in certain situations mix-ups
Right.
much easier to run.
So
So
when you were saying that his character ability is kind of fake because it's baked into the cards itself, this is his real character ability.
correct, yeah, he's not a real character until he flips,
Okay,
but he's a
and
two good.
with a 2 gauge exceed cost, it in most like I'm certainly not going to expect my opponent to be able to stop me from exceeding most of the time, but it shouldn't take me long in
Right. I mean,
if I'm gunning for my exceed mode to become this Propeller Knight.
yeah, like it's a 2 gauge exceed cost on a character whose only unreliable attacks are like a 4 to 6 projectile and a thing that you probably don't play as an attack unless you really need to. He's
Okay,
got he's got like an above curve starting position poke, a range 4 sweep, an above curve 2 and 3, like onto above curve 2 and 3, and like a pretty big projectile.
right.
So
And
it's
on curve
very easy to get
normals,
2 gauge, and on curve
sure.
normals, like very
Yeah.
easy to get 2 gauge.
Well over
So
half of my deck is a consistent enough thing to that I can rely on it to get gauge, often even on defense.
yes, and like often doesn't require gauge in the first place. Like some characters can do that, but their ultras are kind of committal. Like props ultras are you really don't play these until you flip for the most part.
Okay, so well, these might be
We'll
to
get
end
back
the
to that.
game, but this is to like get my game plan started.
Yeah. So yeah, now that we've talked a little bit about that, and you can see why we're sort of harping so much on these this mix up. Let's talk a little bit about the triangle. So
Okay.
Cannonball, like we said earlier, is a very specific card. It's a big gun. It's got kind of an awkward range band of 4 to 6.
Yeah.
But the big thing about Cannonball is that one, it's a mid-speed ish projectile with 3 guard. The shapes that you're going to really compare this to a lot of the time are things like the low tiger shots of the world, right? Those like big chunky projectiles. I think
Sure.
Testament's got Arbor Design low. Sagat's got his big chunky projectile, and this one is interesting because it does a lot of things, right? It ignores armor, which is always good on projectiles. It pushes and then draws a card. And notably, a lot of the time, projectiles will have like advance 1 or 2 afterwards so that they are less safe, right? They'll run into sweep if you throw them at starting position.
Right. Yeah. So it's not actually part of the move don't move mix up.
Yeah. But interestingly, Cannonball, because it's got push up to 1 on it, it's super flexible because you can still dodge sweep.
Okay, sure. So I have a little bit of option selecty kind of movement, and also a lot of times like Jin, I think Ice Blade is a you know 3 speed projectile, has maybe some similar ideas to this. It has flexible movement on it too. It lets me. I think I may close 1 or 2 or something like that. But
That sounds right.
Propeller Knight has a lot more to do at range 4 than Jin does.
Yeah, so
Um,
Ice Blade is, close up to 2, then draw 1 on hit.
yes,
So Cannonball, right? Like not only does it hit, push up to 1, then draw, it also ignores armor and hits for 6 sometimes at range 5 or 6.
right, right. Oh, sure. And the range 5, the push up to 1 also lets me more easily. It like obviously my range band is my range band, but if they're here, and I would prefer them to be here so that they can get hit by the
The tipper.
tipper, I've got that baked in.
Yep. Yeah, Cannonball's great. Also, it feels really bad to get hit by because it looks so obvious, and then you just explode.
So is this like I've already got as part of my range 4 threat, you know, the 2 options as you mentioned. This is a way to catch cross. This is a way to beat block to keep them from just kind of noping out of the interaction. Is this also just like a ranged punish tool? Like
Yes.
if I find them out here, I'm like, or really if I'm here, for example, and I say, okay, backstep with my character ability, shoot a cannonball, they probably just like can't. Most characters can't really do very much about this.
Yeah, so interestingly, this specifically is really scary for a lot of characters because the response is typically, if you're getting a projectile thrown at you, is to either dive, which does dodge it, or assault, which doesn't.
Right,
So, if you assault into this, yeah, you take 2 fewer damage, but like you still get pushed. He prop draws a card, you take 4 damage. Not you've not really changed the situation. If you can't move in again, Propeller Knight could theoretically just retreat 1 again and throw another fireball,
right,
or close in and throw a headwind
and
or
throw
a propeller
headwind.
pull.
Sure.
So it's pretty rough. It's definitely a range punish. It's also a good fast projectile punish. It's got that 3 guard,
Oh, sure.
right? Like,
Yeah, yeah. I mean, a lot of I feel like Ryu as our training dummy causes more problems than he solves because there are so many things that we are like, oh yeah, totally. This is a really really bad situation for so many characters. Parentheses except for Ryu.
yeah,
Uh,
it's fine. It's fine for Ryu, sort of, and we'll get to that later.
right.
Why it's not quite fine for Ryu, but
Um,
yeah.
the other question I had about this is like a lot of times when you have like a ranged punish type tool, the low tiger shots as you mentioned, it's like kind of it, the difficulty to set them up is commensurate with the reward you get off of them, right? Like low tiger shot is brutal to get hit by, but you're kind of spending the game setting that up if that's your game plan. Does Propeller Knight's semi-free movement make this actually pretty easy and reliable to get into situations like this, or am I still going to have to work at it pretty hard?
So the interesting thing about Cannonball is that it's not reliable if the opponent is kind of near the middle of the board, right? Because it'll never really be more than 4 away.
Right,
If for whatever reason the opponent decides to move away from you, whether it's because they cross out or they have a big push that they were trying to set up, or they just are the type of character that wants to play a range 4 to 5 game, which is dangerous but doable, it gets much easier to set up. So Prop is a lot like Ryu in that he tends to sort of play on what his opponent's game plan is more than what his own game plan is,
okay,
outside of really loving those ranges. So if the opponent is like really sticking to you, well, you can push them 2, you can pull them 2. So you've got a lot of ways to move, but you tend to like move a little often rather than moving a lot in big
great. Again,
movements.
quite similar to Ryu. There's no what is that Carl Swangy boost? The like close up to 6 or something?
That's headlong run.
Yeah, headlong run. There's nothing like I guess there's fly up in
Just
the
fly
kit.
up. But fly up is really expensive. So
Yeah.
that's kind of the same concept.
Okay. So
So
I can do a lot of this. I can do some micro spacing, but if I'm in this situation, it's going to be a serious commitment to go here to throw cannonball.
yes.
Okay.
And that's actually let's actually talk about these 3 boosts before we go on. That's
Okay.
actually kind of what these 3 boosts are meant to work to think about. So these three boosts are your movement boosts. They've got some stats on them, but fundamentally they're the board control boosts. So cannonballs, which is quick step, is the same as Ryu's quick step,
Yep.
like same name, same ability, where it's just your action compression. You get to just swoosh one space over and then do another thing.
Right.
It's
And
notably not.
that other thing that I do could be my character abilities second swoosh.
Yes, and they are both advance a retreat, not close a retreat, so you can cross over,
Right.
which is often relevant.
Definitely.
And fundamentally, these are not like anything super impressive, but micro movement control is always really good, and it's just good to have more than anything
Sure, yeah.
else.
It helps you play your hand, right? Like if I there are a lot of situations where I'm here and I've got a handful of dives and spikes. And other characters I'm like, well, I gotta change cards, right? I gotta take the turn off. I hope I draw into a focus or something. With Propeller Knight, I'm like sick, quick step, uh character ability, throw a dive. And that's like a or quick step throw a spike. And that's like a that feels so much better and makes the game so much smoother.
Yeah, and of course, Cannonball, as you mentioned, is kind of situational. If your opponent is hugging you, you're just not going to be able to do it.
Right.
And so Quick Step is basically always going to be good in some fashion.
Sure. Yeah. Okay. So it's modest, but it's always going to be relevant. It's always just kind of like a useful, helpful thing to have in your kit. It synergizes
Yep.
with your character ability.
So the other two, which are Windstream and Jetstream, are a little bit interesting because they're both boosts that are relatively safe to just put down, right? Like Windstream is free, Jetstream costs one, which is annoying because you don't have a lot of card draw. You will notice that there's almost no draw card in this kit. So it's really just the kit on Cannonball. So that's probably his biggest weakness is his lack
Okay.
of card draw, despite many of his like costs being low and efficient. Both of these are really annoying, more than they are like straight powerful, but they give you a lot of opportunity to play with. So Windstream, for example, fantastic with almost all of its specials. Lets you tipper Cannonball from range 3, and means that you could throw Cannonball into some really silly things, like you can do range 2 Cannonball.
Oh yeah, I guess you could.
It also lets you set up like some really cheeky dives, for example. You could do like range 1 dive, push 2, then move. The opponent is getting greedy. It's also just generally good with like launcher. Basically, it lets you it fixes any of your range issues fundamentally because it makes propeller pull a lot scarier in the sense of like you could pull 2 then pull 1, or push 1 then pull 2.
Right. So
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 basically it's like
it's kind of a zoning boost. Like I'm not a zoner like new 13, all right, let's rumble kind of zoner. But I would prefer most of the time my opponent be here or maybe here, or if my hand is allowing for that kind of play but not this kind of play, I'd prefer them out here. Or if they're here, I'd prefer them out at 6. Like
yeah.
it's just a way to, again, very similar to quick step. It's going to let me play my hand.
The interesting thing with before push 1 or 2 is that before push 1 or 2 on normals is mostly bad,
Yeah.
right? Because it kind of gums up your range curve. If you put it on grasp, you're just gonna whiff at
Right.
range 1. If you put it on cross, well, now sure you can push 2, retreat 3, and then or push 1, retreat 3, and then they have to deal with cannonball. Like that's fine,
Right.
but it's not ideal. Um,
It's
but
basically the opposite of a before close effect that's like kind of secretly breaking the speed curve for you. This is
yeah,
making the speed curve much harder to break.
right. But the alternative is that it makes a lot of your specials and especially your ultras much more flexible because you can often push to get the extra power out of something. Making your 1 to 4 sweep 7 power is obviously phenomenal and always get the +2 power unless they're at exactly range 4.
Right.
You've got doesn't really help swoop, it may help saber lunge. Like I guess the easiest way to describe it is that it's +1 power and it changes a bunch of interactions and it makes it very annoying for the opponent in the sense that they are probably going to get pushed, right? This is not a hit push. This is a before push.
Right.
So if you just like throw something and they're not outspeeding you, they're getting pushed, which
Okay.
means that you're changing the range.
Sure. And presumably looking at your hand, you are changing the range into something. Well, it's this is more action compression, right? I know that you're spending a turn boosting, but now you're able to push, and maybe you're pushing on defense, and you'll be able to use your opponent's turn to set up a range that
Yep.
you like.
Yeah, it's a weird boost. It's like in practice tends to be pretty decent, but it's a little hard to explain without just like going through a bunch of situations and saying, "Oh, where would a +1 power before push 1 or 2 be useful?" Because a lot of the time it's not so much that it's like really making your attack great as so much as it is like, "Oops, this just ruined my opponent's attack for no reason."
Right. Sure. Yeah. And I mean, like, if you have kind of like the luxury of pretty big, generous range bands, my opponent might not. And they might, not only might they be more range sensitive than me, but also I have probably more ability to fix my range than they do.
Yep, that's really the concept.
Okay, so I should think of this boost as partially a way to gum up my opponent's plan, partially a way to enable my specials. Because I mean, like in terms of enabling my specials, this is not uh +1 power is modest, right? It's not an overwhelming advantage that I'm like, oh my god, I can't wait to land saber lunge and hit for 5 instead of 4. Um
Yeah,
okay, okay. Among the normals, is it occasionally you mentioned dive, is it also occasionally useful on spike?
kinda. So the thing about range 1 spike is that like range 1 spike is good because now it beats assault and now it beats grasp, right? If you have spike that hits a range 1.
Right.
But it doesn't actually beat grasp because they can just push you too, and then you were forced to push them out of spike range.
Right. So
So
if that's what you need, if that's the only thing you need is to make range, then yeah, Spike does that because they'll be forced to not take the damage, and that gives you more range, I guess.
right, and it's good against assault, but and it might be good against like fast Tatsus and a bunch of other shapes, but it's like fine on normals for the most part. It's
Okay.
not like exceptional.
Okay. Makes sense. It's mostly to just make my specials more flexible. Sure.
Yeah, but Jetstream is the opposite. Jetstream has all the same benefits of, you get to pull them, so you can change up the dynamic a lot. And you also get a speed for your trouble. That's why it costs a force.
Okay.
Jetstream is insane on basically every normal, right? Because it's speed and range.
Yep.
It's nuts on dive, like truly nuts on dive, because it at range 3, it's gonna force them to whiff. Like it'll do this. And at range 2, it'll force a whiff. But in a lot of situations at 1, like here, you can still dive them over. If they're at long range, you can probably pull them and either hit first or cross up, and you're getting +1 speed. It's just at a ton of ranges, it makes dive cross up at like longer ranges.
Right. While also making it just more consistent.
Yeah, it is really good on cross, right? Because it means that cross now is a 1 to 4 7 speed. You just like pull them 2, whack them, and run away.
Right. And so,
And
and
if you're
both of the things that you've said so far are going to dramatically change the board state. Right.
yes,
Like if I'm trying to do the dive play that you just mentioned, like they're in the corner, in this position
you
in
won't
this.
actually hit like there. It's more of a if you can pull them into the corner and corner yourself, or if you can throw like them from really far away.
Oh,
Like
sure. Yeah. No. Yeah. This is a good
if you're
one. That
like here,
Yeah. So I pull two. I go here. That is a massive change of the board. So
yeah,
again, going towards playing my hand, this is a way to uh, make a lot of movement and a lot of there's a lot of opportunities to gum up my opponent's plan with this as well.
yep. So it's good with grasp in the sense that it's a rate it makes your grasp super fast and lets you move him around. Basically, Jetstream is great. It's expensive in that it costs a force and he doesn't really have any economy, and it costs a propeller pull. But it's really hard to go wrong with it unless they can like hug your minimum range really, really deeply, which is mostly going to happen with dive in certain situations, or
Right,
spike. Like spike at 2 is going to whiff, but spike at 5 now, 4 and 5 now hit. So that's a fair trade, I think.
right, right. And so
The
in the situations where they are hugging my minimum range really, really tightly, I have propeller pull.
Yes, and also you can like step in first
Right.
or step out first.
Right. So
If you like,
this is a situation where like the boost and the attack aren't really overlapping in situations where I'd prefer to use them. So the decision will kind of, unless I'm saving it for something, the decision can kind of be made for me. If I'm at a place where propeller pull is good, uh, use it then. If I'm at a place where jet stream is good, use it then.
yep, yeah. It's a lot of his cards are just generally good, so use them as feels appropriate. He's
Right.
he's not like a strong internal combos type character.
Sure. Yeah. This feels like I'm going to be playing very opportunistically so far, and just like looking at my hand and saying, well, I've got three things that hit at range 4. Let's try to find a way to get to range 4. Uh, here's some a path through my hand that I can use.
Yep. All right. So speaking of getting to range 4, let's talk about Saber Lunge, which is a weird card.
Okay.
So Saber Lunge has a has 2 power. It's got 1 to 3 range, and it's super fast. So its 2 power obviously is not great, but having 6 speed on a 1 to 3 range is already above curve.
Yep.
And here is where things get interesting. So when you hit, you advance 4, then you choose 1. So let's just again, like we did with the other cards, let's just go through the ranges. At range 1, it's not ideal, right? It's 2 power, it's below curve, but it advances you 4. So it's going to dodge basically any slow.
Right. So it's similar to Headwind with a little bit less reward on it. It's a mid speed.
Yeah, and but it's a pretty fast mid speed, right? Like
Definitely.
it's a speed 6 dodge whatever the heck you want mid speed,
Right.
which is kind of similar to, I think Gordeau's got some similar shapes, and this ends up being much more reliable because it works at other ranges and also is just generally pretty good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm thinking of an Immortal
Precise aim, I
Glide's
think
got
it's
the
called.
advance 5. Precise aim is the hit push 3.
Oh yeah,
Mortal
yeah, yeah.
Glide,
No,
Mortal Glide,
what's the mortal slide? The
Mortal
the
Glide.
mortal glide, glides and slides, propeller
Yep.
pull, propeller pushes.
Yeah, I mean that's after this is hit. But
Right.
so here's where it gets interesting. So you've got two options on hit, right? You've got advantage or after return this to your hand. So they both have like some ups and some downs. So after return to your hand means you don't get the gauge, which is unfortunate, but you're, you have it back in your hand. And hit gain advantage is great because hit gain advantage, you're now at range 4 all of a sudden, and you can keep doing whatever you're doing.
Often one of the things that we've already spent some time talking about.
Yep.
Okay.
So that's pretty scary for the opponent. You could just be throwing like if you're here and you advance 1 strike, this is a pretty real threat. Just to be like, do you just suddenly take 2 damage advantage? Do you like now take 3 unreactable or take 6?
Right. Guess
Pretty
into
hard to
this mix
interact
up
with.
that's so scary that we've sort of been highlighting this whole time.
Yeah.
Okay.
Now,
I
now,
also notice
yeah,
your bonus power is a hit effect, and this movement is a hit effect. So if I hit this at 2, for example, I
correct.
order my hit triggers and I get my tipper bonus anyway.
Yes, at 2 and 3, you're going to get at 2, you'll move to 3. At 3, you'll move to 2, and you're going to get the bonus both ways.
Okay, so kind of similar to how there's a little bit of a little bit of flexibility on Cannonball about where exactly I'm getting my tipper. Saber
Yep.
Lunge, it's not as restrictive of a maximum range clause as it would seem from just my character ability.
Yeah, it's not as bad as it looks.
Okay,
So now, what's interesting about this is you do have to pick one. Advantage. You can never like have a downside from advantage. If you don't want to return it to your hand, just choose the advantage, even if you're not striking. But returning this to your hand, the other nice thing is that this boost is really good.
yeah, I mean it's better Swift,
It's,
and
it's
Swift
better
is
Swift.
an
So,
infamously strong boost.
so Swift withdraw a card, especially on like if you don't need the gauge, having an attack that's basically poke you for say 4 above curve or on curve, move a little bit, like dodge a focus or something, and then return this to my hand and get a better Swift is a pretty good situation. So this card is sort of a one-stop shop where it's not like amazing, but it does a bunch of things that are all pretty nice to have.
Yeah.
So the opponent kind of always has to respect it.
So, and what Blade Flourish makes better is kind of everything. Right. Like, are there any particularly standout cards that we should look at as really, really
It's
benefiting
really
from?
it's really good with Headwind because it turns that mid speed into an on curve at range 2, and you're going to
Sure.
probably be at range 2 if you play Blade First anyways. So it
Okay.
turns that 3 to 4, 5/5 into a 3 to 4 6/6, which is super annoying.
Yeah, that's actually especially with like with the ability to push to set it up ahead of time. Like that's extremely consistent and very strong.
Yep. There is one caveat, which is like many of his other setups like this, they do have issues with focus.
Yes. Okay.
Not being pushed is a pretty powerful effect against someone who relies on push, not only for like damaging effects, but for hit confirm.
Yeah,
Right?
and
Like if
for
you
for
play,
setting up later turns, all sorts of things.
but like if you play focus into Headwind, it usually just misses.
Yeah, true.
So that's a real concern.
Yeah, because I'm awesome. I'm in this perfect situation where I'm going to use the mid speed properties of beating a slow uh to by pushing it out. Oh wait, this slow doesn't let me push it.
Yep. So that's
Oh,
a real concern. But
okay.
just the thing to think about. That's often the counterplay. Like I said, is not so much like move specific, but sort of, or not so much character specific. It's kind of like move specific. Not
Right.
being pushed is a major one. Swoop is kind of similar to Saber Lunge. Swoop is it's a range 1 damage, so it's going to hit for 3 basically always, and it does 2 things as usual. It's got after advance up to 3, so that's one of the best movement effects in the game,
On a
just straight
speed
up.
7,
On
too.
a speed 7, yeah,
That
it's
is
just
almost unstoppable movement.
yeah, you're basically going to if it's possible to dodge the opponent's attack by moving around like within 3, they're not going to hit you.
Okay.
That's why this costs a force, because this is an after, so you could just like not get hit.
Right. I'm immune to projectiles.
Yeah, well, unless you can move 3 out of it, which is not always guaranteed. Some projectiles have pretty generous ranges. See,
Sure.
I said, but yes, you're scary to projectile in a way that's not just the cannonball mix up.
Right.
So,
And
for
I'm and
example,
I'm scary in melee range because again, like this would not dodge a sweep, for example. It's not far enough, but Saber Lunge does that. So they might be afraid to play the sweep into me at range 1 anyway. But
yeah,
again, there are plenty of things uh that have 1 to 2 range that I could pretty comfortably get out of the way of, especially at speed 7.
yep. It'll also, for example, beat things like Metsu Hadoken, right, which is normally pretty unbeatable by
Yeah.
just like whoop out of it.
Yeah. And
So,
I'm perfectly fine to not do 3 damage if the upside is Ryu spends 3 gauge and I don't take 7.
yep, you do spend 1 force, right? It is a force special, and that's
Right.
why it's a force special.
Sure,
But
sure.
that's not all it does. So it also has Rose Toss. You are always going to get this boost because this is not optional. So you're never going to get gauge from swoop either. But as cleanup, you're going to get a free +1 power on your next strike, and at range 3, you might get some free gauge, or not free. You might get a card from your hand to your gauge.
And that gauge is kind of like what I would have gotten by playing swoop
Kind
anyway.
of, yeah,
Okay. It's more
yeah.
expensive than that because swoop's a force special and it's from my hand, but I get gauge.
Yep, and you're changing the field in a kind of unreactable way. So it's like in a way, it's kind of like a proto speed dodge. It's really annoying to deal with, more so than it is like to actually hit with. You don't actually want to play swoop if you can avoid it,
Right.
but when
It's
you
just
do,
expensive.
make it count. Yeah, it's just expensive, and the reward's not great.
Right.
It's 3 power, and you don't usually play it at range 1.
Right. Sure.
So
So this is an emergency button mostly for projectiles or for other mid-rangey tools. Like even looking at I don't know, how annoying are tidal whirl shapes at range 3. Well, this gets through them just fine.
yep, and of
Okay.
course you also have a tidal whirl, so they can't even throw them safely.
True. Yeah, good point. They'd have to initiate with a tidal whirl and still whiff into it.
Yep,
So so
it's a good life.
I have these two boosts that are both have now effects that are range sensitive. I can see plenty of situations where Blade Flourish is just like, well, yeah, I'll take regular old Swift if I'm not exactly at range 2.
Yeah,
Um, look at having had a Ryu guide Ryu interview already. Swift is a perfectly acceptable, very strong neutral boost. If I can get the extra card draw out of it, I'm happy to. Obviously, um, for Rose Toss, am I ever playing this in neutral? Not as
Yes.
part of Swoop. If I'm
Abs
not at range 3.
no, not really. You're really just playing it at range 3. But
Okay, so if I'm
at
if I'm
range
here and I need gauge, Rose Toss.
yes.
Okay.
That's really so worst case you spend swoop as a card for force. Like it's perfectly good at that. But fundamentally, it's it's good. You know, it's just it's going to get you gauge. If it's kind of a defensive emergency valve, it's a extra gauge option. It's a bunch of little things kind of stuck together. It's your worst card, to be honest.
Okay.
But it does things that none of your other cards really do.
Sure. Okay. So, and when
So
I'm evaluating the situations in which I'm going to use the boost, because we talked about how for these three, it's super opportunistic. These are all good cards. These are all good boosts. The situation will present itself very clearly to me when I want to use
often,
them.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, actually, it's kind of these two they're a little situational, right? They both like this has some contingencies. This is really good, but it costs a force.
Right.
This one, if you want it, use it. It'll kind of be useful. This is always good and sometimes better.
Yeah. Yeah. And
These,
the caveat to that though is that often I won't have to choose because I'll be able to return it to my hand and just play it as a boost anyway.
yeah, yeah. But if you're just playing Blade Flourish and not using Saber Lunge, like, oh no, too bad.
Yeah. Oh no. What am I going to do with this Swift?
Yeah. So that's really kind of the shape of his specials, and Propeller Knight loves specials, right? They have a ability that buff specials. They play these a lot. They rely on these heavily for mix up and striking.
Right.
The concern is that you only have so many specials, and you don't have any real easy way to buff your normals outside of these boosts.
Right.
So you do have situations where, as your deck starts to thin out, you're more predictable. Your mix up starts to kind of fall apart a little bit. That's up to you to sort of figure out how to play that, right?
Sure. Yeah. So I have several specials whose utility don't really interact or overlap with the situations where I'm going to play a normal. Like, other than dive, none of these even hit out at range 4. So, like, if I lose headwind, suddenly it's way harder to land. Or if I lose both copies of Propeller Pull, suddenly it's way harder to make headwind relevant. These are kind of
Yeah.
forming their own internal mix-up,
Yeah.
and I
Literally
need
the Ryu
all of them.
problem, right? Like literally the weakness that Ryu has, which is his cards are all very non like they're very different shapes.
Yeah, if you
So
if you need Hadoken, you don't need 1-inch punch.
yeah, and if you are missing one or the other, then your mix up
What are you
starts
going to do
looking
when you're at range
more
4 if you don't have Hadoken? What are you going to do at range 1 if you only have Hadoken?
yeah, your mix up is more predictable, you have limited options. So
I see.
Prop has the benefit of, his movement is really good, and unlike Ryu, he can move and strike. Like his ability is just better than Ryu's for the most part.
Right.
But the difference is that his cards are a little bit less overwhelming.
Right. And when I move and strike to a range where I don't have the other part of my mix-up, I'm telegraphing something face up enough later in the game. To your point about, when my deck starts thinning out. So I
Yep.
need to preserve those options really carefully to keep them guessing when I do get the positions that I want.
Yep. So speaking of that, let's talk about his ultras. So Propeller
Okay.
Knight has a couple of interesting things. He's pretty good at hitting. Right, he's got gauge generation, he's pretty good at hitting. That means he gets gauge pretty easily.
Right.
His
He
cash
also
outs
do,
for
he also doesn't do a
gauge,
lot of damage, which means that over the course of a game, I'm going to be hitting several times.
yeah, it's like 6, 4 to 6. It's like 4 to 6, 4 to 6, 3 to 5, but usually 3, 2 to 4, but like usually 4, might be 2. At best 3, probably 0.
Right.
So, and your normals are your normals. So you're hitting a bunch. How do you actually kill things? So you've got 2 ultras that you kind of need to cash out on, and they're both
Okay.
really good.
Okay.
So let's talk about the more obvious one first. This is Launcher. So have you played Shovel Knight?
Yeah. Yeah. I actually did.
So
I spent some time speedrunning it. It's really
so
fun.
yeah, so you know what this attack is, right? This is
Yeah.
the
It's it's basic. I mean, it in Shovel Knight, it kind of looks like it would be a command grab where he like bops you up in the air and stabs you a bunch.
Yeah, like he pushes you off the stage, flings you upwards, and then you
Yeah,
fall onto the sword.
yeah,
So this attack, that's kind of what's happening, right? Like he hits you, or you like are here, you suddenly fly forward and get stabbed for 5
right,
because it's always going to hit it at +2 because it's a hit effect.
right.
So first things first, don't ever focus this.
Oh yeah. So you get hit by you get hit by the full damage of the attack. You gain advantage, and now you're still at Propeller Knight's favorite range anyway.
Yeah, and you whiff the focus.
Right.
Yeah, it's really focusing launcher at range. Like range 4 focus is sometimes a reasonable play on a lot of characters that have like things that move them forward aggressively, and like you might focus to try and dodge propeller pull at range 4, right?
Sure.
Like that's not unreasonable. If that's the case, it's really dangerous because
Okay.
launcher will murderize you.
This is
So
also I'm just noticing the stat line of this card. First of all, speed 7 again, incredibly above curve, like so above curve that the speed curve hardly exists at range 4 with 7 speed. But also 2 gauge is a super modest cost for
yeah,
what I'm getting here.
for 5 damage, yeah, it's great.
Yeah.
So the risk of launcher is that launcher is kind of hard to set up, right? It hits at exactly 4, which means it hits at 3 to 5
Right. On my turn.
on your turn, and it means the opponent really should reconsider striking into you at range 4.
Right. And
Like,
as Propeller Knight, if they strike into me at range 4 and I have 2 gauge, I'm either assuming that they've made a horrible lapse in judgment or they're striking with something that is going to beat launcher.
yeah, which is, I
Sweep?
mean, it exists. Yeah, sweep is the main. Like throwing a slow into launcher is reasonable. You know, you'll
Yeah.
trade up. They'll probably spend some gauge.
But like sweep on a hard call out. Sweep does not hit here. If I'm wrong about them defending with the launcher, I've just lost my sweep.
Yeah,
What
like
am I?
if you strike into launcher at range forward sweep, not only are you your hard calling out launcher, you will lose hard to propeller pull because you'll miss and then get pulled and then
And then
takes.
get pulled in and effectively take a sweep without trading with it, which is always horrible. You lose
Yeah,
to headwind too, actually.
you lose to headwind, you lose to cannonball pretty hard.
Okay. So
So
it
you're hard calling out specifically launcher.
yeah, and so it like yes, initiating with a sweep or a slow into it is strong, but it would be the act of a lunatic to do
And
that
you
with this
and
kind
it
of
better
range 4
be
mix up.
specifically sweep because if you initiate with focus into it, then all the downsides still apply.
Hmm.
Right?
True.
You still focused launcher.
Right.
So, it's a specific call out. Sometimes like characters will have range 5 things. Like you could just, I don't know, like 1 inch punch it and just like feel like a god if it works.
Right. True.
But it's risky. So that's launcher. It's kind of obvious when you're going to try and use it to set up for it. It's usually worth setting up for with the caveat that it does put you at range 1,
Right.
which is not you do have advantage, so you can try and move 1 or move 1 or boost something. Like you're not in a bad spot, but range 1 is not your ideal range.
Sure.
And
Okay.
it also prevents you from doing like the launcher into launcher death combo, which would otherwise be a concern for these high speed, high range attacks.
Yeah.
So that's the other issue about focusing launcher is that if they have another launcher in their hand, you've suddenly opened yourself up to like a lot of probably unreactable damage.
Oh, true. Yeah. I mean, if like we can kind of what you're saying now is that we can think of this pull 3 as effectively a downside on the card.
Yes, it is
Um
mostly a downside.
yeah, so if you have managed to lose to launcher in a way that uh obviates the pull, you're probably just going to lose twice. If not to launcher, then one of the many other things you can do at range 4.
Yep. So fly up is another important range 4 mix up because, or sorry, full broadside.
Okay.
Full broadside is another important range 4 mix up because what you'll know about full broadside is that it's got stun immunity and hits for 6, which is really 8.
8, sure, which is that's a I found my damage, Andarel.
Yeah. So the before effect on full broadside is very strange. So it's before if the opponent didn't move push or pull up to 3, which is one of the strongest push or pull effects in the game. I think push or pull up to 3 is basically nobody else has that degree of just like, oops, I moved the opponent
Yeah, it's like
in their kit.
the thing that it reminds me of this is not a push effect. I think it's a lot of advance and push, but it's what's that one Alice card that you put the Fear of God into
Sword
me
and
with?
Cross.
Yeah, Sword and Cross. It's got some of that vibes where it's like the the place I'm going to put you with this is wherever I want.
Yeah, well, that's not the case here because the place where you're going to get put is range 4,
Right.
and you're going to get exploded.
Yeah.
So full broadside is really interesting because first, if the opponent is cornered, well, sucks to be them because like, what are they going to do?
The opponent did not move during this strike. So corner, do you mean cornered as in like out here?
No, like in this board state, like they're in
In
the
this
corner.
exact board state. Okay, so they assault in and get hit by the full broadside. They don't do anything, get pulled, get hit by the full broadside. Um I guess they dive and take 6. They call it out with focus, I guess,
And get an ignore armor cannonball to the
get
face for their
destroyed by
trouble.
cannonball.
So full broadside is another piece of the range 4 mix-up that we haven't talked about, which is the like, oops, you're dead.
Okay.
Similar to Icicle Drop on Polar Knight, there's a lot of ways to set this up that are kind of clunky. Um, Often at range 1, the things that you might think would beat full broadside don't. This only
Yeah, I
really
mean
loses the
it.
dive.
Yeah, so if you're cornered, suddenly the dive doesn't work anymore. So actually, so if I'm at range 1 and there's a before close effect, they didn't actually move. Just
Correct.
like we sometimes joke about them like chest bumping me, but that's not
Yeah,
movement. They would then get pushed out and take the full damage.
correct.
Okay.
They grasp you. They did not, in fact, move.
Right.
Get exploded. They crossed out.
They've dodged the movement by landing at
Yeah.
range 4.
Yep. Like every normal at this range, I'm pretty sure, except for focus, is going to get exploded.
Yeah.
Focus still tries to move because it hasn't moved yet, but it doesn't. It avoids that, obviously.
Right.
So
Sure.
at range 1, that's full broadside is actually really scary.
Do I have a focus mix up at range
Mm,
1 the way that I would at range 6 with cannonball? It's saber lunge. Okay.
It's Saber Lunge because you
So
just
so
you just nope out.
it's dramatically less scary of a mix up because this is 6 damage at range 6 with ignore armor on it, and this is
0
I'm hitting
damage basically.
for 2 into focus. But I get advantage. I can probably make something happen, and I still have my full broadside, and
And also
they're
they
down to
just lost
focus.
focus. Yeah, which is a
Exactly.
really big deal.
Right.
So these two cards are sort of the cash out on said range 4 mix up, right? They essentially are much scarier than anything else because this one's way more reliable. It filters out a lot more, and it's just a good chunk of damage. And this one is only 3 gauge for a
For 8
frequently
stun
1 to
extremely
7 8 stun
consistent.
immune.
Yeah.
So both very good ultras, both like pretty high power, and both kind of interesting boosts. So fly up is you move to any space.
Yep.
This is not great. It's kind of a joke, and fly up is like the archetypical just move anywhere boost. And you only really use it if your little like tiny movements aren't getting you where you need to be. But if you need to get somewhere fast, you fly up. Like you just do it.
Okay.
It's basically you're spending 3 essentially force to fly up, right? Because it's 2 for the
2
ultra
for the
plus
ultra, 1
1.
for the force cost. Yeah.
So you would already have gotten 3 movement out of it, but like if you're cornered against a range 1 character and you
Right.
just want to be like, I don't want to be here anymore, you can just do that.
Sure.
That saves you, what is that? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 force for your trouble.
Yeah.
So that's not bad.
Yeah. I mean, even just getting over your opponent, right, costs extra with the
Yeah, so
assuming we
like
were just
you'd
spending
get
it as
here,
force.
you would get here just by spending it as force. Everything
Right.
else is a
And
bonus.
then you have your extra on top. Yeah. So if my opponent is in the center of the board, there's basically unless I'm up against like Rachel and I've got there's or Polar Knight and I've got lightning rods or ice spikes all over here. There really isn't a place I could use it
Yeah, it's not
that would be worth the cost.
right. It's not really it's kind of a situational boost. Like you're mostly going to be trying to set up launcher. The main benefit of fly up is if you need to just literally play keep away from someone until they run out of force,
So it's a
which is
Zangief boost.
Zangief or Carl or whoever else,
Right.
because it stops them from just running into your face and being like, "There's nothing you can do."
Right. Okay.
Pirate Reserve is the opposite. Pirate Reserve is insane.
So it,
So
it it's just boost. It's just plain and simple boost recursion.
it's a second free copy of the best boost in your discard, unless that boost is Jetstream, in which case it's an extra. It's a little overpriced,
You have to pay
but
a force, and you
you have to
probably
pay
won't
for it.
get. I mean, if you need fly up, you have. Sorry, instant boosts. It's continuous boost only.
Yeah, continuous boost only.
Okay.
So your options here are pretty straightforward. Blade Flourish is often a great target, and then Light and Fierce are both great targets because you're pretty consistent to strike. And giving Launcher +2 power just cracks it in half because it's now 7 power, so it crushes any slow they could try and throw into it.
Right.
So also Windstream is really funny with Launcher because it won't beat Sweep, but it will let you launch from range like 7, I think.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, 1, 2 launch.
Right. Yeah. With your character ability. Um. So, and I mean, like obviously, like you mentioned the sort of lack of action compression here. All of these things are 2-turn setups, right? Because I'm
Correct.
other than the blade flourishing I can do on defense. Um, basically everything that I'm doing here is I put something down and force my opponent to deal with it, and then I have something really scary I can do to confirm it.
Yep. And the reason that the seed is so critical in a lot of ways is because you have so many 2-turn setups that this means that they can't just like move one and break your setup.
Right, right. I can I'm still scared. They need to do something more impactful than just change the board state because odds are I'm better at changing the board state than they are.
Yeah, if it's a small change.
Right, sure.
So Pirate Reserve, it's often going to be just more stat boosts. Now, that leads to an interesting dynamic. So a lot of characters are speed sensitive, right? They just like don't do well into +1 speed.
Yeah,
So you've got +1 speed, +1 speed, +2 speed, or this or this.
right.
Whether you So you've got 6 extra copies of light or +1 speed in your deck,
So
on top of a kit that is already on or above speed curve pretty consistently.
quite fast, yeah, and the stuff that
You
isn't is uh either situational or incredibly punishing
Yeah.
or
And when
stunning.
what this means that against characters that like are really speed sensitive, like for example, someone like Noelle, or to a lesser extent, someone like Milia, who doesn't like being struck into and is generally going to be kind of concerned if the opponent can threaten +1 speed consistently, right?
Right,
Because a lot of the time your defense is your whirls or your fast dives, and if the opponent is already throwing whirls and fast dives at you, then prop is really annoying to fight against for that type of character
okay,
because they've got a more reliable slow and like probably worse, but comparable, like less rewarding, but frequently more consistent fasts, and a kit that's really good at taking advantage of them.
sure, okay,
So fundamentally, like prop is a jack of all trades. They do a lot of thgoing. They don't really do a lot of damage outside of getting hit with a full broadside or like fierce recursion. But fundamentally, they're going to try and sort of chip you a little bit, run you out of cards, or try and make you like guess mix-ups wrong so they can snipe cards from you, and then like chunk you 2 or 3 times to end the game. Because
right,
if they hit you for like 6, 6, 5, that's 17. They can get you for like 3, 3, 2, 4 for the rest, right?
sure, sure,
And
and
hitting 6 or 7 times is like not impossible for someone who hits this fast.
right. So, and the you just described kind of the trajectory of a Propeller Knight game in pretty vague terms there, right? Like you'll hit with a couple things this many times. Is that because there isn't really a line? Like you are such a jack of all trades, you are so flexible. There isn't like a combo that I'm looking for that is the Propeller Knight experience. The Propeller Knight experience, as you said, is kind of being a counterpuncher.
Yes, yeah. So like a lot of Shoto characters, like, say Ken's got staple boost onto Axe Kick, right? Ryu's got like throw some stats down, see if they react. If not, just punch them really hard or try and how to loop them.
Right.
You don't have a looping projectile. You do have a looping card, but it's nowhere near as good as Hadouken.
Sure, sure.
Right, it's less unreactable. What you do have is you have a lot of just like very reliable shapes and a couple of cash out tools. The boost and the ultra on this, the ultra on this. This cannonball is an ultra level cash out. Ignore armor at 6 range is brutal, or 6 power,
Right.
6 range is brutal. You're really just trying to navigate through the opponent's whatever and hit them hard enough for them to feel it.
Okay. So I'm leveraging, and so that kind of means that we can't really play the attack versus boost game any more deeply than we already have, where it's like, uh, you know, this is good, but it's expensive. This is good, this is kind of situational. Like I'm gonna be evaluating my entire kit and its utility based on the matchup, and there aren't really too many heuristics that we can really give to
Yeah, it's
evaluate
the
our kit.
matchup and also like the situation. Like fundamentally, you don't if you don't play this card, okay, like it's not that big a deal. Rose
Right.
Toss is legitimately nice to have because it's a gauge accelerator and your gauge payouts are good,
Are messed up, right?
but like you're still spending cards because the thing that's going to drive Propeller Knight games more than anything else is economy because you don't have any. You've got
Sure.
a card on Blade Flourish, you've got a card on Cannonball. That's all you're getting.
Right. So at some point, I'm going to have to just sit and prep and
Sit and
kind of
prep, change cards.
spend some
You
force. Sure.
like
Um,
you're fast, so you get a lot of gauge. So yes, you have great cash outs, but if you, for example, hit with launcher and
that's
then you
two
spend it
force.
for 2 force, like to
Sure.
change cards, sure. Just be careful doing that at range 1 because you're not ideal at range 1.
Sure. And in many other places, if I'm at range 4 and I really need some resources, I'm comfortable enough at range 4 that I can probably afford to take the pressure off if I absolutely have to and just prep. Because it does, compared to other people, like I know, like, I remember from a long time ago, my lesson with D on Tager was like, if you are at range 1 with Tager, you had to work really hard to get there. You're in your ideal position. Just start wild swinging if you have to. Like, don't take your foot off the gas. But Propeller Knight has so much movement that like when he's in his scary spot, it seems like he can actually just kind of be like, all right, I'm going to be scary for a second and make you afraid to strike into me, and I'll cash out by prepping or building
That's
resources.
that's
Is
definitely
that
reasonable.
correct?
That's definitely reasonable. The interesting thing is that like he's not a great wild swinger. So swoop is a fine wild swing because you can just invalidate it. Saber lunge might just randomly win, which is
Right.
nice. These three are a little situational. Cannonball in particular is a little finicky,
Yeah, you
but
probably want to be playing these intentionally.
yeah. But the issue is that because of your range limitations, like launcher's usually just gonna miss if you wild swing it.
Sure, definitely.
Full,
Yeah.
full broadside might work. Like that's not a bad wild swing a lot of the time. We've gone over how reliable it is. But
Right.
like these are expensive, these specials, and then you're a lot of the time the ranges that you'd like to wild swing at, meaning at 4, your normals are all gonna whiff except for dive.
Sure. Yeah,
So you're not
and
really a
that's half your
great
deck right
wild
there.
swinger. Yeah, so you're
Yeah.
not like really a great wild swinger.
Right.
So if you're sort of playing that counterpuncher and you don't have an obvious thing to do, yeah, you're fine prepping, especially because your individual card quality is pretty high. So you'll probably get something useful out of the deal.
Right.
And especially if you're flipped, like you want to be striking, you want to be constantly trying to move to annoying ranges for the opponent and making them spend resources to try and like get around that. So like yeah, prepping hurts that tempo game, but you need cards to do that in the first place.
Sure. Yeah. It's definitely not what you would prefer to be doing, but it's going to be a necessary evil because you just don't have the card draw, and because of how you have very stable defensive cards. You've got a above curve at 4. You got an above curve at 3. You have a sweep like at 1. You can probably find some times to take your foot off the gas and build resources and at least have something to do if your opponent strikes into you.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. That makes sense.
Yeah, so
Um
yeah, it's sort of hard to go into more specific detail of prop without sort of looking at individual opponent situations, or because obviously the thing with mix-up characters is that once the opponent's options are down, and once their options are down, the mix-ups just change like
yeah,
dramatically.
they stop being mix-ups sometimes. They just start becoming just their own cash outs.
Yeah, or they start being, hey, I want to hit with this. I really want to read something. So reading is actually worth talking about in a little more detail. So let's just talk about normals in general,
Yeah,
right?
sure. Yeah, so
Prop.
we've done all the other cards anyway. Let's talk normals.
So block. Block is good and bad. It's bad because empty block is not great into prop, right? He can punish you for throwing an empty block.
Right.
And block tends to be expensive, right? It lets you use cards to cash out or to cancel a cash out. And fundamentally, Propeller Knight's biggest weakness is his card flow. So block is not great for him.
Right.
The extra gauge is nice, but like he's not starved for gauge. He's not like Ryu where he really, really needs that gauge.
Right.
He
And
wants
like
it.
2 gauge exceed mode, cheap ultra, modestly expensive ultra, but hey, it's a lot of damage. Uh,
Yeah.
Probably going to be spending some gauge to change cards at some point, but not. I got a decent budget.
I mean, this is like a Metsuhado-esque ultra, right? Like this
Yeah,
ultra is going to
end
pretty
games.
consistently hit for 8 and blow things up and put the opponent in a bad range. It's
Yeah,
really strong for 3.
yeah.
So block, not ideal. Focus, mixed bag. Focus is always good, right? It's probably the best defensive shape in the game.
Yeah,
And the draw card is huge. Reading is really interesting. Reading is really interesting specifically because opponents love keeping focus in their hand against Propeller Knight. Because a lot of the time, focus is the only answer to his mix-ups that's like at all consistent.
right.
And so reading focus is surprisingly reliable as prop. I think you just like
So
spike them or something.
yeah, read focus, play spike. Probably don't like it, getting rid of a focus out of your hand. If that's all you're trying to do, maybe just parry it. But like you do
Yeah.
want damage on top of it. Don't read focus and then play something that doesn't hit.
Yeah. The other thing about reading is that reading often relies on like actually having a reliable way to win the mix up, and Propeller Knight is really good at that.
Sure.
You know, he
Yeah.
tends to have a lot of just like, oops, this worked type cards. And so he's pretty good at catching out reading, just like a lot of other characters are. But
Yeah.
yeah, like it's reading. It's gonna be good in general.
Range 4 reading into launcher. Uh exactly the thing you were saying to be very careful of as Propeller Knight's opponent. Just make them do that.
Yep. So like if you empty cross into Propeller Knight, well, range 4 reading into launcher is interesting. Yeah, you can read the focus and get a lot of value. If you read most other stuff, it's just gonna get stunned anyways, which is fine, I guess.
Right.
Sweep is always great. You know, you have another copy of sweep, so it's good to just hit for high damage. Light is really good, but like not as good as it would be on slower characters a lot of the time. You don't really have any huge cash outs outside of the headwind.
Yeah.
And the problem is that light headwind still loses to focus.
So you're still you're probably putting light onto dive and spike like a normal character would, and maybe
Yeah, or
making use of your recursion boost to just get more shots at it.
yeah, like light on full broadside is actually really scary because it means that like it beats dive now and it has some other shenanigans if you
Right.
strike with it. But for the most part, light is just like more of a nice to have. Same with cannonball. Like light cannonball is frequently just like oops you lose
Yeah.
situation. Um so
But
spike,
on a character who doesn't have a ton of damage anyway,
yeah, sweep is great.
I'd better be putting light onto something that hits pretty hard, or I'd better just be throwing sweep.
Yeah. Yeah,
Okay.
and realistically you're gonna throw a lot of sweep. You know, headwind is kind of your main cash out as is, or full broadside. Depends a lot on what their focus situation is. If their
Right.
focuses are down or their focus likes are down, the game looks very different,
Yeah.
which
Okay.
is just an interesting dynamic that's not true of a lot of characters.
Sure. Yeah.
Spike.
Not a lot of people care about movement that much.
So Spike is weird. First, defend is great on mid speeds and like things like grasp, but like you don't really have a lot of mid speeds, and certainly not ones that defend makes great. So defend's not like anything super noticeable. You also don't have a lot of like big range things with not a lot of guard. Most of your big range things are either above curve or guardy.
Right.
So that's nice. The thing about Spike though is that the biggest issue with Spike is setting up for Spike, and you have your character ability. So you're actually really good at spiking.
And luckily I have tailor-made spike target in focus that I can
So
hopefully bait out.
yes, so you've got you've got opponents that really want to play focus. You've got great ability to throw spikes. You've got a bunch of boosts that are like pretty good on spike.
Oh, true.
Propeller Knight really likes spike.
Okay,
So
okay.
Propeller Knight, yeah, really appreciates spike more so
And
than most
also, again,
characters.
another source of damage, which a non-metered source of damage, very similar to sweep, is just something that I'm like, I will take what I can get because a lot of it is not going to be coming from my specials.
Yep.
Okay, okay,
So dive is interesting. Dive is weird for a couple of reasons. Firstly, a lot of the time the challenge of dive is how like range 3, 4 it is, and you're really good at generating those range choices.
sure.
So dive is really good, right? Just like full stop, you can get to 3 easily to get the cross up dives. At 4, it hits decently hard, but
You have a
like,
ton of
and
speed
also
boosts to make it on curve.
you also have a lot of mix up. So like, if they're trying to trade a slow projectile into you, and they're not like, and it's somehow faster than propeller pole, if it's like a specifically a range 3 speed 3 projectile, and
Sure,
you don't
like
have,
cannonball.
yeah, like cannonball. So if they specifically are in a situation where somehow a mid-speed ish projectile threads the needle, which means like you don't have launcher, you don't have full broadside, but you do have your starting mix up. Dive does actually cover a different set of options than the other ones do to an
Sure.
extent, and so that's nice, I guess. But the other thing about Propeller Knight is they're pretty honest. Like, you don't have any weird control effects outside of pushing and pulling. Your speed is like +1 on speed curve, and it's hard to get like +2 or 4 out of it. So tech is pretty significant. Like, if someone throws Way of the Warrior at you, just tech it,
Right.
right? Like, if the opponent is throwing a ton of stats, you don't have a ton of stats. You have a lot of little tiny incremental effects that you have to stack up onto pretty good cards.
Okay.
Just tech it.
Makes sense.
Assault, Assault's great, both halves. You know, being at range 1 with advantage is really nice. Being at range anything that's not 1, or a big retreat is nice. You don't need the range 5 or the speed 5 on curve, but it's good to have. That is kind of a hole in your kit, right? Like the closest comparison to Saber Lunge, which is sort of Assault E.
Yeah, in that you can throw it at range 3 and it gains advantage. Like there's
Yeah.
definitely some overlap.
So
Um,
like, you don't need Assault, but more assaults is never bad, and also Assault into Saber Lunge is pretty good. It'll
oh
often,
sure.
do like
Yeah.
whoop
It
whoop.
would set a better range for you. I was actually about to ask about dive. Like the downside of dive, especially the mid speed dive, like awesome, you did something, you did a great thing with your dive, but now you're at range 1. Same with
Yeah.
assault. Is that kind of a, you know, it's something that Propeller Knight would rather not do?
Yeah, it's a downside. I mean, having advantage on the assault play is really nice. So you have a lot more flexibility. So, same with launcher's advantage. It
Right.
lets you kind of do that comfortably. Or you just prepare or something and accept the counter punch and then go on your merry way. The
Okay.
fact that you can also cross up whenever you want is significant, right? Like, because of your character ability, having advance or retreat, not close or retreat,
Sure.
you can always do like this and then
Yeah.
do this and
You
strike with like cross or something.
you dive into the corner and you're not really in the corner for that long.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
Makes
you've got
sense.
a lot of leeway there to play with this, but it's situational. It's very similar to your existing kit, just in that like power force on curve, nice cash out on hit band that a lot of your cards exist in.
Yep. Makes sense.
Cross, obviously phenomenal, sets up everything you might want at range 2. When unflipped, cross is just nice because it's free gauge that helps you flip, but flipped, cross is really annoying because if you strike with cross, it lets you generate a free mix up afterwards by moving 1.
So your opponent has to do something about the fact that you crossed out like now. A lot of
Basically, yeah.
times with a lot of characters, I mean, obviously, so uh, at range 1 cross gets you to 4. That gives you all sorts of stuff. Range 5 cross gets you to 4 on your turn, gives you all sorts of stuff. But for a lot of characters, like cross is positioning negative enough. I've crossed out on plenty of people, gotten to range 4 or 5, and their response is like, all right, finally, the pressure's off. Let me prepare. And
Yeah,
like, you can't
as
really
long
do
as
that
you have
against Propeller Knight.
cannonball and propeller pull and especially full broadside, like you're because full broadside, is a 1 to 7
Yeah.
essentially
Yeah.
for 8 damage. And yes, they can react, they can interact with it somehow, but like their interaction tools can be limited.
Right.
And if they guess wrong, they explode. And same with Cannonball, which is 2 less damage for much cheaper cost and
Right.
ignoring block. So a lot of the easy answers of just like, oh, I'll just throw a project, I'll like start projectile chucking, don't really work all that great into
Right.
Propeller Knight. So he loves cross.
So
Run is
you
also nice
cross
as a
out
big
and
move,
immediately
but
you're in a better position than you were before.
yeah, I mean, or like they cross out and you're like, oh, okay.
Cool. I'm eating good tonight.
Yeah, like hopefully you didn't just cross into Cannonball and like explode and die, but
Right.
if they cross into Propeller Pull, say, and you just like don't pull, yeah, it's annoying. You lost Propeller Pull, but like, what are they gonna do? Get cannonballed?
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Makes sense. And
So
then obviously advance or run rather. Same with backstep. Like it's there if you need it.
yeah, it's there if you need it. It's not ideal. You'd like to play the cards, but if it comes up, sure. You've got essentially extra copies of Cross and Assault kind of combined into Saber Lunge in a lot of
Right.
ways.
Oh yeah. Fair point.
It's because it's kind of a Cross Assault hybrid.
A little bit of both. Yeah. Okay.
So, and then lastly, Grasp. Grasp is great. It's range 1 reliability. You don't desperately need Grasp because you've got the Swoop Propeller Pull mix up, but like you don't want to be swooping if you can avoid it. So you
Right.
don't really have a good range 1 option at speed 7. So especially if the opponent's got like like the Ken Ultras that are the speed 7 checks, right, where they're hitting for six at
Yeah.
6 speed
Yeah.
for a lot of
Do you
damage.
have an answer to Shinryuken? If you don't, it had better be grasp. If you
Yeah,
do, maybe use both because Shinryuken is so scary.
yeah, and like in a world like this, okay, like this is an interesting position because, for example, specifically if there's 3 between you and the corner, full broadside doesn't work properly
Sure.
because you can't push them for the full damage. But like if you're trading Shinryuken into full broadside, like okay,
Right.
right,
Yeah.
like if they trade, what is it, like 11 to 8 or something?
Yeah. And
That's
and Shinryuken is
fine.
is not accustomed to trading at all.
Yeah,
Like if you can soak a hit from Shinryuken and still hit back and do like comparable damage, you're like, all right, cool, that was enough.
yeah. I mean, Ken spent 4, you spent 3.
Right.
You Ken lost positioning very badly. Probably initiated the strike because you don't really play Shinryuken on defense very often.
Sure.
Like you probably just win, honestly, unless you die to the Shinryuken.
Right.
Because
Which you might. I mean, that 11 damage is a lot of damage.
yeah, and you have no armor, notably. Like your defenses are this.
Right.
You've got no armor, you've got no extra guard on any of your boosts, or like you've got a grasp cross counter here, but like this is all your defense except for the stun immunity on full broadside.
Sure.
So like
None
make
none
it
of which
count.
is going to keep your life total high either.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. Okay.
So
And
yeah, so that's kind of the rundown of the normals. They're all like pretty good because Prop's a jack of all trades. He can really make do with anything.
right.
But often they're good in kind of weird ways as a result of that. Like the kid context is a little strange.
Sure. No, that makes sense. I mean, it's this lesson has very similar like overtones to it to basically every other Shoto lesson. I think the first one I did with Banazama on Ragna amounted to like shrug emote, I don't know, use your good tools when they're good. And it's like, yeah, like it's a Shoto. It's a character who thrives on versatility and an ability to find what they need in any situation. In order to give a complete Propeller Knight guide, we would need to talk about all 119 other characters in the game. I guess luckily the X Succeed series is turning into that. So if you want to get good with Propeller Knight, go watch all of the other videos.
Yeah, I mean, really, it's more just like you want to know what the opponent's big cash out combos are because if the opponent is really really good at action compression and they can just blow you up, then okay, they're really really good at action compression. They can blow you up. Most of those characters have either poor economies or poor ranges, right? They
Okay,
have
yeah,
specific ranges or they have an economy that only lets them explode like a couple of times per
once
game
or
at
twice,
most.
sure, sure. Or
Then
they're spending all of their action economy getting to the specific range that they need to kill
right.
you.
Well, like that's kind of thing. It's like if you're in a situation where you're up against like a Potemkin or a Tager or like a character that really loves a certain range,
Right,
well, or like a Gold Lewis, for example, well, good luck, right? You have a ton of free movement, but you are stuck striking whenever you do it.
Right.
So you need to actually win those strikes, which is not
Right.
always trivial.
Sure,
If
definitely.
you have a character, if the opponent's character has like one really scary card, that's what reading and parry are for, right? You don't really have any other specific tools to deal with that, but that really scary card better be scary enough, right, to deal with full broadside and launcher and saber lunge and cannonball.
Right.
And like a lot of things can deal with headwind, but when you lose to headwind, you tend to lose really hard.
Right.
So
So,
there's
so
like that weird dynamic of just, it's really you're just trying to more of Propeller Knight strategy is about how their cards beat the opponent's good tools than they are about like setting up anything past that like four-way sort of superficial here's a bunch of scary things mix up, let the
right.
opponent figure that out. And I have
Right. Right.
so many cards. Like it's one thing to have kind of a two-way canned mix up like Testament does, right?
Mhm.
And that's scary. Like that can be pretty valuable. The reward is not necessarily ideal, right? Testaments, for example, their reward is much higher on the low projectile than it is on the on the high
Definitely.
projectile.
Yeah.
But fundamentally, if they're not if they're not engaging with that mix up, right? If the opponent's not engaging with that mix up, what do you have? You have like a sight swing. You've got like maybe sight swing at range 4 exactly. You've got like Grave Reaper, I guess is fine.
And
Grave
you've
Reaper's
got
not bad.
your buffed normals. Oh,
Yeah,
and
but
unholy diver, which is actually pretty real.
well, Unholy Diver's like at range 3 specifically. Like I'm
Right.
talking about more like the range 4 mix up for Testament is like Sight Swing, Grim Reaper, Arbiter Sign,
Yep.
and that like falls apart pretty quickly at range 5.
Yep.
But like it's a pretty real mix up with like Mild Reward.
Right.
Your mix up is kind of similar, right? You've got 3 cards that are all like decently good, but the difference is that the reward is much higher. Like these both are 6s. And once you have Gauge, the reward is substantially higher.
Is
Because you've
crazy
got a
and is
super
very
consistent
consistent.
5 and a relatively consistent 8. And
Yeah.
that's kind of the difference between Propeller Knight and a lot of these other kind of ranged mix-up characters that can throw ranged fireball mix-ups, where prop like needs range 4, but they're very good at getting range 4. If
Right.
you look at someone like Cyrus, for example, so Cyrus has one tool for this, right? Like you've got your big gun. You've got the low projectile on Albatross Talon, which
Yep.
is really
Yep.
annoying to deal with, and you've got Dredge Fury, which is your real cash out. 3 to 6 8 4, and so that's pretty similar in practice to full broadside, with the downside of it's faster. It's got a weaker range band in a lot of ways, but it's not stun immune. So like it's just it's a very like pick your point to strike, see where the opponent is running out of cards. And if you need to just dance around and just constantly be at annoying ranges because the opponent really wants to not quite be at that range, go for it. Like you do you. You got
Okay.
some rewards for being at 2 or 4, right? Like Blade Flourish's extra card draw is actually a pretty significant reward given your economy problems. A lot of your attacks tend to be better at 2 and 4 specifically, but that's very dynamic. Launcher is good at 3 4 5 when you're exceeded. Full broadside is often better at 1 than at 2, just for the quirks of how it interacts with assault.
Right. Oh, true. Yeah. Undercurve assault kind of completely messes up full broadside. So, like, the overall Propeller Knight game plan is basically try to be whatever my opponent can't deal with in the context of finding that range 4 mix up and blowing them up where I can. Um, so like the counterpuncher comparison to like Ryu that we were making a second ago when I made the joke earlier in the lesson that like Ryu's actually a terrible training dummy example character because he has so many things that like gum up what would otherwise be sure things. Like you have uh this is in some ways in terms of how to dodge a ranged attack, how to stuff a ranged attack, this does things that Hadoken does. This is above curve at 3. This is above curve at 4. Here's some big scary ultras. Here's you called this a Mezzo Hadoken. Like there's a lot of similarities to what other all rounders are doing.
Yep,
And
and
I should kind of
interestingly,
assume that my game plan is going to resemble theirs in some way.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And interestingly, like if you take a comparison, Ryu's got a lot of really annoying tools for Propeller Knight, right? Like Donkey Kick is fantastic. It often sets up a good range for Ryu, hits super hard, gains advantage.
Right.
We don't need to talk more about Hadouken. 1 inch punch is weird, but it's an extra copy of focus and it generates range 4, which Ryu likes. Shoryu is Shoryu. It's pretty self-explanatory.
Sure.
Tatsu is Tatsu, again, like super reliable range band. But if you sort of compare a lot of these cards, right, like this is very Tatsu shaped.
Definitely.
This is kind of a weird one. This is kind of like the ranged equivalent of 1 inch punch.
Oh yeah, sure. I mean, it's got the
Like
ignore armor. It's got some movement that you can use to set a range that you like. Yeah, I can see that.
it's like 1 inch punch, but it's meant to deal with ranged attacks rather than range 1 attacks.
Right.
This is like, again, kind of like the Bizarro Donkey Kick in a lot of ways, where it's like a little unreliable, but it's got good cash out and deals pretty high damage.
Dodges your sweeps.
Yeah, like Swoop is the Shoryu equivalent,
Sure.
and I guess that means that Hadouken is left, and I guess Saber Launch really is kind of the Hadouken equivalent. There's some tangle there in terms of how things map, but like this, it's the annoying to deal with,
Yeah,
does a
like
very specific thing, can be kind of recursive or finicky.
yeah.
Like they're all like bizarro versions in what they do, but they kind of have a similar pattern of like they deal with specific things in ways that are annoying. And the interactions, like, Hadouken is kind of a joke that it beats everything except for slow projectiles.
Right.
And like I would throw this into Hadouken any day, right?
Yeah.
This beats Hadouken clean. This trades with Hadouken, and also you get to choose if you want to pull, like, if Ryu chooses to put Hadouken on top, you can choose to pull him to not 4 and deal 2 less damage in exchange for giving him a guaranteed bad draw.
Yeah, sure. So
This
like
like trades up.
the variety of different ways that every different like counterpuncher all rounder character um expresses this toolkit is obviously going to be different because they're different characters. But the general play pattern of all of them is like find a way to use this toolkit to mess with specifically what my opponent is doing.
Yep. And
Okay.
a lot of the time the counterpunchers all have that weird dynamic of like they all kind of counterpunch each other and beat some things and don't beat some things. A lot of their cards look pretty unfair, but they all have other downsides, right? Like they
Right.
have limited ability to make huge plays. They tend to take multi-turn setups to do stuff. They tend to have issues once specific options are down because they don't have a lot of redundancy in their kit.
Right. Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. So any of the and I mean one of the things that we often ask about near the end, I guess we talked at the end of every lesson we talk about like counterplay and sometimes we talk about like other characters who play kind of similar. We've got the other characters who play kind of similar on lock. It's all of the counterpuncher all arounder types.
Yeah.
Um we've talked a little bit about counterplay already. Is there anything else you wanted to mention on the how to beat Propeller Knight spectrum?
So a lot of the time, Propeller Knight is very movement sensitive, right? Because he needs to move in small amounts. You can do quite a bit by just like moving a lot and seeing how Propeller Knight reacts. Because if he's using cards to react, then he's running out of economy.
Right.
Obviously, if he just strikes into you, and then you've made a bad choice as to where you've moved. But just sort of getting a sense of what's in his hand is really important. But generally, it's going to be run whatever your character's gimmicks are. If your character is good at just like getting in close and blowing up, do that. If your character like loves boosting, his boosts are fine, but they're not like prime quality.
Right.
The Blade Flourish is his best boost, and Jetstream is pretty good, but it costs a force, and his economy has an issue. If you're like playing really unfair, cheaty attacks, well, if as long as you can throw like 1 or more speed on them, so he can't just like speed dodge out or speed curve out, then you're pretty much good. Propeller Knight is not really going to have any weird, unfair, out of left field stuff, except for like maybe a full
Yeah.
broadside like explosion or a
Remember that
launcher
these
if you mess up.
exist because they are pretty overwhelming to deal with.
Yeah. So fundamentally, that's a lot of what it is. You can do the thing that a lot of these characters have, where you can like try to sort of bully them when they don't have gauge, but that's pretty hard into prop. He just gets gauge so easily.
Yeah.
But just like be aware, if you can force him to play the broadside, he probably won't be playing a second one for a bit. So it's not quite like Ryu, where if he does Metsu, he's probably not Metsuing for a while because he doesn't actually hit that often. Propeller Knight hits more often than a lot of other counterpunchers do. He's
Right.
kind of like a speedster counterpuncher
Yeah,
hybrid.
because he needs to. He's peppering you with little hits while he's building up for his big payouts.
Yeah, but that does lead to situations of maybe he spends gauge on a big change cards and can't full broadside you, and now your stuff is a lot more flexible.
Sure.
Especially if you have advanced ones, those are kind of annoying for him. They can either save you from 2 damage or maybe dodge a broadside in a important situation.
Right.
Like there, it's just a lot of little how does your kid interact with his kit type stuff that you really have to be aware of,
Okay.
and vice
But
versa.
otherwise, the answer is almost always like find the thing that your character's good at. Again, honestly, like go watch all the other videos on this channel, find your character, figure it out. Shameless plug, shameless
Yeah,
plug.
very similar to like the Ryus and the Kens and the Polar Knights and the Ragnas and the Jins of like they're not pulling elaborate BS
Yeah.
to
They're
shut your
they're
character down.
they're playing Exceed. They're playing Exceed as interpreted through sort of a offbeat lens, but they're playing Exceed.
Yeah, and they're good
Okay.
at Exceed. Like their cards are strong, their boosts are pretty flexible and good. They all have some weakness somewhere, often economy, trade offs.
Right.
But fundamentally, they are just playing Exceed.
Okay. That makes sense. Um, any other strategic considerations for either side of the Propeller Knight matchup before we wrap things up?
I don't think so. I think we've gone over it in pretty good detail. But I mean, fundamentally, if for whatever reason the opponent is playing a prop and they don't flip early, you have a lot more room to counterplay. Maybe they lose some mix up early or they whiff something. Then you can start like really bullying him because he can't fix his ranges as easily.
Right. Yeah. If
Like
you can,
take
yeah,
it,
we've like this whole lesson has been predicated on the fact that this is the Propeller Knight that you're going to be playing as because this is so easy to get off of. But like, if you can keep Propeller Knight from getting to his Exceed, like do it. He doesn't have a character ability yet.
yeah, and like I didn't really talk about the considerations behind exceeding. If that move two is completely useless to you, if you're already at your good range, I wouldn't like rush to exceed just to have it. It's
Right.
not that important to you. You can always delay it a turn or two, but ideally you get the move two is impactful and you flip. So think of it as like a heavily encouraged move two that needs to
Yeah.
gauge, right?
That's going to advance your game plan to what you were hoping to do anyway. But don't do it just to get it if you can maybe make use of the movement next turn.
Yeah, like if you do something like assault in, if you when you have one gauge, gain advantage, exceed and retreat two,
Right.
that's a great use of your exceed. Like that's good value.
Yeah,
If
that's time well spent. Money well
so,
spent.
that sort of thing is the kind of stuff that you should be looking for. And you can set it up in a couple ways. Like Saberlunge will often set that up for you. You can also do it just like if the opponent uses run to try and get in on you, you can exceed to get out.
Sure.
And this is like a move too that you always have on deck, right? The opponent has to play around it. So yeah. All right. I think that's all the important things to think about at least.
All right. Well, Andarel, thank you so much for the uh primer on Propeller Knight. Really, really looking forward to putting some of this into practice. I really like the character. As always, I really appreciate your time and your expertise. So thank you so much. Um,
Yeah.
uh,
I would say
folks
thanks
at
for having
home,
us and good luck with your the rest of your project. You've been grinding out so many of these at this point. I'm not sure how many are left.
this is uh, episode 101. So there's
Boys.
19 left. We're getting
So
there.
close. So
We're
close.
getting there. Folks at home, I hope you enjoyed yourself. I hope you learned something. Go try out Propeller Knight. He seems like a really, really good time. I will see you all for the next one. Goodbye, everybody.
Have a good one.